share some stories about what's happening with housing at this time. I'll take some time to do a wrap up of 1.0, and then from there, hand it off to Shauna, who is going to help prep us for breakouts. The bulk and the meat of today's meeting is really going to be thinking through as a collective what our goals and objectives will be and how we begin to prioritize the work through Tiger teams and other avenues. And so we'll have a 2-minute pitch, elevator pitch for different Tiger teams. There's a lot of ideas on the table coming out of 1.0. Then we are going to move into the breakouts. We're going to sort you out, get you into those rooms. And in the process of doing that, we're going to give you a 5-minute breather. And then we'll come back together in our breakouts for a 45-minute facilitated discussion in which we take 20 minutes to go over goals and objectives, 20 minutes to go over Tiger team ideas and priorities, and then 5 minutes for your wrap up. We'll come back, and during that report out, Shauna will facilitate that and we'll capture notes in real time about the ideas that came forward. We'll give some time for public input. If you are a member of the public today, we will give you some time to give us some feedback, but you're also welcome to join the breakout sessions and put your ideas on the table as well. And then finally, we'll go over next steps. Oh, I forgot to go over the after stories. We're going to do 2.0 partner intros. So that's when we're going to do a bit of a roll call and we'll go organization by organization, and you can say who your primary lead is and secondary lead is representing your organization. So we'll keep that moving, but that's also an opportunity to take a quick moment to update on any of your housing activities. So that is our agenda today. And so with that, I would like to move on to our stories from the community. And so if you recall in Mountain Housing Council 1.0, we always try and ground ourselves in real stories that are happening out in our world and specifically in our community. And we've selected 2 individuals here, Amy Chiardi and Kai Froelich, who are kind of on the front lines of our housing situation. Amy is a agent with Tahoe Luxury Properties, and she'll share a little bit about what she's seeing from housing sales. And Kai Froelich is a co-founder of Landing Locals, an organization that is dedicated to helping locals find long-term rentals. And so I've asked both of them to bring a story and some input that will just really ground our conversations. I think what's important at this moment in time, and I'm grateful for the reprieve we've had, is so much has shifted under our feet. The fact that we're starting Mountain Housing Council 2.0, the next 3-year initiative, fresh, gives us the runway and the leeway to really think about how we can be relevant today, how we can be flexible and nimble to respond to the situation as it changes. And so we don't have to do things the same way. We've got a really great council that has a lot of trust with each other. We've got some good ways that we've worked and we've had focus areas that we'll go over, but I'm hoping you'll be inspired by these stories today and really think about what it means for the work ahead. So with that, I'd like to invite and exit my Amy to get us started. Amy, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. I hope you're well. So I wanted to share a little bit about what's been happening in the real estate market here. I'm going to put on a timer to be sensitive to timing. So I'm sure that most of you have heard that the market is very active. And to really translate that information into more tangible terms, I want to share some stories about what's been happening. So Tahoe Donner, of course, has always been kind of the most approachable space for younger Bay Area tech couples to buy into for their second homes, given the price point. At this point, we have now been seeing Tahoe Donner homes move with 20 to 30 offers in less than 48 hours, a couple $100,000 over the asking price. What's happening also that is unique to our area, but not unfamiliar to the Bay Area, is offers are being sent in totally non-contingent with a loan attached to it, but they're waiving the appraisal, they're waiving the loan contingency right out of the gates. So what this really, in my opinion, translates to is a really unstable market long-term, because people are essentially going in blind and negotiating against themselves. And without an appraisal, the person that's determining value is the person who is making a really emotional purchase and saying, like, I need to get out of my San Francisco or New York flat and I need some more space in a low density area. So there's a big influx of people that are coming up to Tahoe to live here full time. That is not just happening in Tahoe Donner or at that, kind of approachable buy-in rate. That's actually happening across the board, all over. Every house I've submitted an offer on in the last 2 weeks, which has been over 10, at least 3 offers, and we're getting beat out by cash. And so I had a friend who's also an agent call me last week in tears. She is part of a very high producing team here on the lake. She's making well over 6 figures. Her and her husband have been trying to buy a house. She has submitted 3 offers for them in the last couple of months. And more recently, she was on the phone with an agent who's a colleague of ours, trying to kind of share her story to see if there was any way for her and her husband to find this place. And the agent responded with either make more money or buy a cheaper house. So that is kind of the mentality that's happening here. And it's happening, like I said, across the board. So people of all price points. So being now making a 6-figure salary may not be enough for locals. And I think we've always been on a slower trajectory of what's been happening in the Bay Area, but now we're seeing their market and that mentality come to us. And so I'm fearful that we are now at a space where locals really can't compete, truly. You can't compete with a loan right now. And that's exactly what happened to the Bay Area. So it's something that is really high on my radar, how we can, continue to work together to make sure our locals don't get pushed out.
Thank you so much, Amy. I appreciate you sharing that story. And I'd like to also hand it over to Kai, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Stacy. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So as Amy was saying, we are seeing very similar kind of erratic behavior on the rental side of things. One thing that's really been interesting to see is that, similar to with buying homes, people are trying to outbid our locals on the renter side. And so at Landing Locals, we're trying to prioritize our local workforce with finding long-term rentals, but we are getting a lot of inquiries from people in the Bay who are saying, oh, I work at Apple. You don't have to worry about how stable I am. I can pay the entire year's rent up front. I had somebody actually who just wrote in last night and said, I know that this house is $2,600 a month. I can actually pay $3,600 a month if you can just choose me and have me sign the lease today. This is really concerning for a lot of our local workforce. We've heard from several people who have had to leave because their homes that they were living in long-term are being sold by the homeowners. And that is also a part of this really erratic rental market. I think that, we are really seeing specifically the part of our population that's being hit the hardest is the essential workers. So a lot of people from the hospital, people who are from the school district are really being hit. I heard from one family who said that they have had to move 3 times in the last 3 years. And if things don't stabilize, they are going to end up leaving the Tahoe region at the end of this upcoming school year. So similar to Amy, I also really fear that if things don't stabilize, we're going to be losing a big part of our essential workers in this community.
Thank you so much, Kai. And then finally, I just wanted to read an email that came to one of our Mountain Housing Council partners. It says, I'm a local teacher here in Truckee, and my husband is a co-owner of a small local business. We're a young working class couple trying to buy a home in our town. Unfortunately, we got our ducks in a row financially right when the housing market became out of control. We've put offers on 2 homes so far. One was listed at $497,000. We offered $525,000, and someone from the Bay purchased it for cash at $600,000. The other was listed at $529,000. We offered $550,000, and it was purchased by someone from the Bay in cash for $771,000. This has been an incredibly disheartening process, and our realtor says the situation is only getting worse. People from the Bay are lining up to see these homes and are coming cash in hand. How is a couple like us supposed to establish roots in Truckee? What can we do about this crisis? So with that, let me go to, pardon me while I figure out my own spaceship. Yeah, so I think that here we are. It continues to roll, and while there's no silver bullet here, and we've always been honest about that, I think we should take heart that we're assembled and committed to figuring out how to tackle this problem. And so this is the work ahead of us. We have a lot to be proud of so far, but it's not enough, and we all know that. I think that there's another element of this that is playing into the long-term health and mental well-being of our community. And so when you have so much uncertainty, when you don't have your own ability to be in a stable home, everything else tends to unravel. And so we've got a crisis on many fronts now. So with that, I'd like to just take a moment and recognize those of you who have committed your time and energy. We're going to go through the partner renewal list. I would like to just use the slides that will be in front of us as a nudge for you to step forward and introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of go down the list. And I've done everything I can to double check lists and make sure that the spelling and everything is correct. And if something isn't, just please let us know and we'll fix it. So with that, let's see who showed up to keep this working and moving forward. All right, so we'll begin with our community partners. These are the partners who've been invited to participate. Oftentimes they're nonprofits that we actually grant to, and so we have not asked them for a financial contribution. And we'll start with Allison.
So I'm Allison Schredger, and I am the director of the Community Collaborative of Tahoe, Truckee. And I'm sorry, Stacey, was there something else I should add as well? Was that it? I would love for the partners to just introduce themselves, and if they have others representing that organization as well. So we all kind of have a sense of who's at the table. So thank you. So just very quickly, our collaborative is comprised of 45 partners. Sorry, there's like a really loud plane going over Sierra Meadows right now that you might be able to hear. And many of our partners are actually part of Mountain Housing Council as well. So we are excited to begin 2.0.
Thank you. I would say Christy is probably next. You're muted. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm Christy Thompson. I am here representing the Contractors Association of Truckee, Tahoe. I'm also an architect with MWA here in Truckee, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Who do we have with Donner Summit today? Is Anne here?
Mute myself. All right, sorry, I was muted. Hi, I'm Ann Flor Dwyer, and I'm with Donner Summit Association, and I'm also a local architect with EcoSense Designs, and excited to be representing Donner Summit Association with Mountain Housing Council. And I'm not sure if Beth Tanoff has joined us, but she is also
Yes, Beth is here.
hello.
Anne, I'm sorry. I think the connection is slow. Beth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Beth Tanhoff, also with Donner Summit Association. I've been involved with the association for a long time. I'm a long-time local resident of Donner Summit, been living up here for almost 20 years, and I'm also a realtor with Engel and Volkers, focusing mostly on the community up here on Donner Summit.
Thank you. Welcome. Donner Summit is a new partner of ours. We're glad to have you. Is anyone here with Mountain Area Preservation? I know Alexis said she wasn't able to make it, so she was anxious to make sure it was being recorded, which it is being recorded. How about North Lake Tahoe Resort Association?
Good morning, everyone. Brett Williams with the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association, and also Agate Bay Realty here at the lake.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brett. How about Sierra Business Council?
Hi, everyone. Brittany Benessy here with Sierra Business Council. Steve Frisch is also on the line, but I know he was having some technical difficulties earlier, so his microphone might be out. But we are really excited.
Thank you. Good to see you. Sierra Community House.
Good morning. My name is Paul Bancroft. I'm the Executive Director of Sierra Community House. Stacy, can I throw out a couple of stats just super quick?
Please do.
So at Sierra Community House, to date, from about March 15th, we've processed 148 applications for rental assistance to the tune of $200,000. We've done $85,000 in utility assistance through our Todd Donner PUD program, as well as Southwest Gas. And we've provided $35,000 in rental assistance to folks with qualifying victimization, which would be domestic violence and sexual assault. So on our end, we're the need is great, and we're getting the money out as fast as we can. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Paul. And if I'm premature, then forgive me, but I understand you're raising a match for some of those rental assistance dollars. And I know TTCF and Martes Fund have put some dollars on the table. So thanks for doing what you're doing to keep our families in their houses. Tahoe Prosperity Center.
Hi, good morning. I'm Chase Janbrin, the Program Manager for Tahoe Prosperity Center. I manage the housing project that we've got going on down here, where we share I think the same sense of concern and urgency on the South Shore that all the voices I'm hearing on the North Shore. So I'm excited to be a part of this.
Thank you, Chase. We're glad to have you, and we appreciate the connection that we have with the Prosperity Center over the years. It's really great to see what's happening with your leadership. So thank you. Tahoe Sierra Board of Realtors.
Hi, John Falk. I'm the legislative advocate for the Tahoe Sierra Board of Realtors. My second on this venture is Matt Hansen, a local realtor who's also been a member, long-term member of the leadership team of the Tahoe Sierra Board of Realtors. And at a later point in the meeting, I'd love to elaborate on a few of the items that were discussed earlier on regarding some of the challenges in the local market that are unique to this time period.
John, would you like to take a minute or two to just respond to that?
Sure, if you'd like me to. From what we're seeing, yes, it is an incredibly hot market price point wise. You are seeing multiple offers, even offers that come in cash, full cash offers. But the quandary is the supply versus demand quandary that we've seen in the past, but it's more acute now than in the past. The number of units being currently offered up for sale is very low, incredibly low. And so we're not only seeing a number of people interested in the units, but we're also seeing far fewer units listed as available for sale or for long-term rent. And so that challenge is accentuated by the fact that the availability of units makes it all the less affordable. And we too would have to agree that the locals are at increased risk to be displaced, perhaps more so than ever in the past because of accessibility and affordability. But it is market driven, and that's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you, John. John, it's good to see you.
And you.
Okay, we've got some TTCF board members, I believe, on the meeting. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. Wally Auerbach. I'm a board member and past chair. It's great to see everybody getting together again on this work, and I'm excited to see what 2.0 can do. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. We might also have someone wearing two hats. I think Jerusha's on the call.
Good morning, everyone. Jerusha Hall on the TTCF board, also on the work for North Star. So I'm environmental planner at North Star. And just to give a little recap for North Star, you know, we're in an interesting time right now. We operate a housing campus out of Kings Beach, the Candlestick campus, and with issues with density and congregate living situations, you know, we're really running into some issues in terms of how we operate that. And then moving forward, it doesn't look like we'll be employing international folks this winter. So it's all just moving, and we're working to understand how the winter will flow. And by being involved with the Mountain Housing Council sort of helps us to keep our eyes wide open on what's going on in the housing market and the community. And like you said, Stacy, there's no silver bullet, and we just hope to keep learning from this organization. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'm not sure, is Alex Moralatos on the line? He also is wearing two hats. Don't you like how I call it a call and on the line? I don't know what you say anymore. Okay, Alex is not here. Did I miss any other board members? I apologize. I just am challenged here on these.
No, you haven't.
Thank you. Okay, this is a pleasure to introduce Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Association.
Good morning, everybody. Emily Vitus, new executive director for TTWHA, and very proud to be participating.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you for all that you did to make Mountain Housing Council as strong as it is today.
Thanks, Stacey.
Truckee Chamber of Commerce.
Morning all, John Minacchio, board member, past chair for the Truckee Chamber of Commerce. Joining us on the call, I'll refer to it as a call, Stacy.
Thank you.
Is Lynn Saunders, our president and CEO. Emily Vitus is wearing two hats this morning. She's also one of our board members. And then one of our newest board members, Chris Ficos with Tahoe Mountain Realty, will also represent the Truckee Chamber of Commerce. Unfortunately, he was called away this morning unexpectedly and could not join us. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I believe Chris Vikers is on, but maybe I'm wrong. He's on.
Yeah, but I'm with Tahoe City PUD.
My bad, sorry.
Okay, well, we'll get there. Okay, Truckee Downtown Merchants Association.
Good morning. I'm Cassie Habel, the Executive Director for the Truckee Downtown Merchants Association, and Stephanie Olivieri is also another representative from TDMA. I don't believe she's on the call today, though.
Thank you, Cassie. Truckee North Tahoe Transportation Management Association.
Good morning, Julia. Julia Tolan with the Truckee North Tahoe Transportation Management Association, and also our new Executive Director, Christine Maley-Grubel, is on the call. I will continue to be the primary on this, and she will join in as well. And unique to this time, I am actually, and I'm getting a little emotional, calling in from my new house in Reno, because after 10 years, our landlord sold. And so, sorry to cry. It's just this time it's personal. So, but excuse my emotions, and please welcome our new executive director.
Thank you, Julia.
Yes, thank you. So I'm very pleased to be here, and certainly looking forward to working with Julia as well, and working with all of you as community partners through the Transportation Management Association. And I would just add too, as we're talking about this with housing, transportation, as we know, works so much in concert with housing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can work together, and certainly to support all of you within the community.
Thank you and welcome. We're glad to have you. Before I move on to the funding partners, I would like to just, in solidarity with Julia, please raise your hand if you've been through your own personal housing crisis living up here. Julia, you're not alone. And I'm glad your family is safe. And Reno isn't so far away. It is not ideal. I 100% honestly understand that. But we are so glad to have you, and you've contributed so much. So thank you. And you're not alone.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And we are totally blessed. We have a great place and a great neighborhood, and so it's gonna work out for us, but still emotional as a resident of Truckee my whole life. So
yeah. Well, thank you for the reminder of why we're here. And we can't let our foot off the gas, and we can't stop these stories unless we really make some big changes here. Okay, now I'm happy to introduce the funding partners who've come to the table to make this work possible. And let's start by welcoming Martes Fund.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Heidi Alstead with the Martes Fund. I'm the primary with the Martes Fund, and Tom Murphy is on the call as well, and he's our secondary, and he attends meetings. Did you want us to give updates, Stacy,
sure.
as well?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, recently, I think at the last meeting, we stated that we supported the Frischman Hollow 2 project with $1 million. And then more recently, the Meadowview Place with $100,000 toward the project. So pretty excited about that. So thanks.
Heidi, any updates on the down payment assistance program?
I know it was pretty slow during the very first part of COVID. It's starting to pick up again. But as everybody's saying, the housing stock is being snatched up faster than people can get a loan. So I don't know that most recent from SBC. If somebody from SBC knows what's been happening in the past month, that'd be great to hear. But we're continuing with it, and also looking into a deed restriction program with our down payment assistance program as well.
Heidi, this is Steve Frisch with the Sierra Business Council. And yes, indeed, requests have slowed down dramatically. The problem, of course, is that people cannot get, they really can't get in line for a first-time homebuyer loan at this point, because everything's coming off the market so quickly. And at some point this will shift, and we'll see a correction here. But and I think we just need to be collecting the list of people like Julie for that shift in the market.
Great, thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Nevada County.
Thank you, Stacy, and good morning, everyone. Richard Anderson, Nevada County Supervisor, located here in Truckee. The second is Brian Foss, our Planning Director down at the Eric Rude Center in Nevada City. Just a quick update, the county has received roughly $10 million in federal funding that's related to meeting the COVID pandemic. Of that 10 million, 1.75 million is being allocated toward grant programs that will support businesses, nonprofits, the community, and we're also allocating monies toward dealing with a growing homelessness problem that's worsening as a result of COVID and the loss of incomes, therefore the loss of a roof over one's head. It's a tough time. And not simply in terms of housing market impacts coming from urban areas outside of Truckee, but simply the impacts on local businesses that are leading to real heartache. So that's it, Stacy. That's it for my update.
Thank you. Good to see you, and thanks for all that the county's doing in this kind of multi-level crisis. North Lake Tahoe Public Utility District.
Hi, Stacy. This is Sue Daniels, and welcome to 2.0. Yes, this is quite a crisis, really. I think a big change in our paradigm as we're going ahead. From the North Tahoe PUD News, yes, we have more people up here, staying up here. We're using more water and sewer, if that makes any difference. We are trying to attain a reduction in water use of 20% from the last 10 years. I don't think we'll be able to achieve it. And we're going to lose a lot of federal and state funding programs for our projects because of that. And that's just due to the increase of these full-time people moving up now. But we did implement a billing assistance program to help because we know our locals were losing jobs, businesses were closed, and we had over 50 applicants to a billing release through the PUD. With my realtor hat on, though, I commiserate with all that you've heard about the real estate market. I've put in so many offers for people. My local buyers, I don't know what's going to happen. A lot of them are deciding, instead of moving from a small house to a bigger house, to just stay where they are and try and add on, because even their stock might be the good low price stuff, but they can't afford to move either. So the stories you're hearing are real. They're going to affect us for a while. I agree with Amy. It's an unstable market, and I think it will bounce back, but I don't know when. Perhaps a couple of big winters will help. So anyway, we can pray for snow.
Thank you, Sue. Good to see you.
You too.
And thank you for the North Lake Tahoe PUD for stepping into being a funding partner. We appreciate all the resources that you've brought to the table and appreciate the funding as well. Placer County, thank you, Sue.
Happy to be there, yes.
Placer County.
Thank you, Stacy, and good morning, everyone. Cindy Gustafson, Placer County District 5 Supervisor. And as I think a lot of you know, we've had a lot of changes at Team Tahoe for Placer with Jennifer Merchant's wonderful retirement plans. And, kudos to her for being really an initiator in Mountain Housing Council from the very, very beginning. But with that transition, we have not replaced that position yet. We're still looking through options of how we're going to reorganize our Tahoe office. But I wanted to introduce Crystal Jacobson, who's on the call today. Crystal is the Deputy Director for CEDRA. And so we're really happy. Many of you met her during the area plan process, and she has moved up here to a home she already owned. Thankfully, because Crystal, you probably wouldn't have, it sounds like, been able to buy right now. And Emily Setzer's on the line as well. And so we, all of us, as well as I'm sure Aaron Casey, will be involved in how we move forward on housing issues and work with the Mountain Housing Council. Crystal, I didn't know if you wanted to say hello to everybody, or Emily, before I do the updates.
Sure. Thank you, Cindy. I am super excited about the opportunity to serve the Tahoe community. I have been, just a heads up, I've been with the county for over 16 years and have done work in the Tahoe area. More recently, I worked on the Tahoe Basin area plan. So I know a lot of you from that process. I spent about 5 years working on an update of the community plans in the basin. So I'm really excited to be back. So thank you.
Crystal.
Emily, did you want to say hello?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Happy to see all your faces. And as always, excited to work on improving our housing situation in Tahoe.
Thank you. Thanks. And then just a couple quick updates. As I think most of you know, Meadowview Place, the 56 units out from next to Schaefer's and Lahontan, is moving forward and should begin construction in the next few weeks. So we're really excited to finally see that project move forward. Luke Watkins, a great partner there, and all of the efforts we've all put into making that a success. We are also, during everything else COVID, what an incredible team with Emily and Crystal and Jennifer and so many people working on a workforce housing preservation program. So this is the deed restriction program we've all been talking about. And Heidi, happy to share with you, if you haven't already met with Emily, on some of the work we're doing there, but it will be modeled after the Veil and Deed program. Our board heard it, about a month ago, and it will be coming back to us. And we've had it at the MAC meetings as well. And of course, establishing that sort of program is great, getting all the legalities worked out, but now making sure that we can provide funding to it. So that is certainly where I'll be focused on how we secure enough funding to really make a difference, especially in a market like we're in right now. We're also bringing forward the Tahoe Basin Area Plan updates, which align TRPA with and what we're doing in the Tahoe Basin with the state law, and talking about some code changes just to better align that, as well as providing changes to the ADUs and to make sure our ADUs are up to date with state requirements. Also allowing multifamily or multi-person kind of dorm style housing in areas where multifamily housing is allowed. And the schedule right now is for that to go to the TRPA Regional Plan Implementation Committee in August, the Placer County Planning Commission in September, and the Board of Supervisors in October, and then back to Governing Board of TRPA in November and December. So it takes a long time to get these changes done on an area plan within the Tahoe Basin, but that's our schedule right now. And then we're also working countywide on our 2021 through 2029 housing element, and have done some surveys and holding stakeholder meetings. So that's moving forward. And for those of you who know how we've struggled with the Dollar Creek Crossing project, we did hear a lot from the community related to taking back some level of control at the county level to do more diversity of product and potentially less density in the housing, and how that project might look and feel to the community, providing a different types of housing products there. So we have retained Williams and Patton Architects for the county to do some kind of more master planning of the site. The developers are still involved, but we're kind of taking it back so that we as the electeds and the public service folks are working on what makes the best sense for that site for our community. So more to come on that. COVID has set us back on some of the timing for some of these projects, but we're still moving forward. So thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Placer County, for all that you continue to persevere on the housing front, again, while doing so many amazing things for our community during the crisis. Okay, Sugar Bowl.
Casey, thanks. This is Monica Petty at Sugar Bowl. We also have some bad news in that we have a large amount of congregant housing, and we think we may lose, up to 100 beds this winter in trying to navigate COVID safely with our staff. So, the news goes from bad to worse.
Thank you, Monica. Squaw Valley, Alpine Meadows, anyone from Squaw Valley? Okay. I know, yeah. And then Squaw Valley Public Service District. Okay. How about Tahoe? Well, I know Tahoe City PUD isn't here. This is one of our challenges, y'all. They have Sean Barclay, who is the primary. They actually have their meetings, their board meetings at this time.
Stacy, can I chime in real quick? This is Chris.
Yes.
This is Chris Vickers with the Tahoe City Public Utility District. We're a local agency stakeholder. I'm standing in for Sean and Kim. Those are our primary leads for the Mountain Housing Council. The district is, we're continuing to work on policy to help in our service area as much as possible. With regards to COVID, we recently offered a rate relief program to our commercial customers on their sewer rates to kind of assist with the downturn in business during this time. And then, we're also really looking forward to continuing this effort with the Mountain Housing Council. It's, obviously become critical at this time. So as a person who's grown up here in Truckee, it's really hard to see my town kind of change in this way, but I'm here to help, and the district's here to help as much as possible. So thanks for letting me participate.
Thank you, Chris. I'm really glad that you were able to join us and represent. And I think it makes it all the more important for us to figure out how to connect the dots through the work, the Tiger teams, and the different ways that we're going to get the work done between these quarterly meetings, and keep Sean and your board up to date. Tahoe Donor Association. Tahoe Regional Planning Agency.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So John Hester, our CFO, and myself are the representatives from the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency on the Mountain Housing Council. And we're very excited about 2.0. So just as far as updates, we are getting really excited to start building on the work that came out of MHC 1.0, and also the work from the Tahoe Prosperity Center with their South Shore Housing Action Plan. And so in June, our governing board approved a formal working group that's really a mix of local and regional partners, so that we can really start delving into those actions and figuring out how we can use them to meet not just the housing goals that were identified by the various housing needs assessments, but also the California regional housing needs assessments requirements. So we're grateful to Stacy, who has agreed to serve on that working group for TTCF and Mountain Housing Council. And the meetings will also be open to the public. And we really encourage people to attend. So if there's anybody who's interested, feel free to email me and I can let you know about the meetings. They're going to get started in August.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. And way to go. You guys pushed a really big agenda forward. It's very exciting. Town of Truckee, Shauna.
Yeah, hi. I'm Shauna with the Town of Truckee. I'm 6 months into being the housing program manager. I'm here today with Yumi Dawn, and Kim Zurich is also going to come on around 9:15. Council member David Tierman had some conflicts, but he was also part of this group. So lots of changes at the town. Jeff Lux, town manager, recently retired. I think we all know him as a huge champion of housing, and played a very significant role in Mountain Housing Council. So Kim Zurich is acting town manager, and then next week, I'm not sure if it's public, so there might be a different one. So there's a lot of effort into the process for finding a replacement for Jeff, and hopefully in the next few months. Housing continues to be top priority for council. The housing program manager role sits under the town manager's office. We have a new team that's formed called the HAT team at the town of Truckee called Housing Action Team. It's cross-departmental, and we meet monthly to move the housing priority forward. So Stacey, this one I'm doing the partner update. Is this
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to share an update with you, me, and I'll start with just projects. So for everyone, just a reminder, there are about 522 existing affordable housing units in the town of Truckee today, and that includes, I'm going to say affordable and achievable. That includes 60 low income senior apartments, and that includes 138 deed restricted over at Coburn. So that number sets the context, because in 2021 we're going to get an additional 200 new affordable housing units in the town of Truckee between Frischman 2, Artist Lofts, and Coldstream Commons. So pretty exciting to see the significant jump in 2021 as far as affordable. Those 200 units coming in will be all under 80% AMI. And so definitely hitting our service industry workers and the needs there. Coburn Crossing, a bit of an update on there for those who are familiar with that. That is an experiment, a new model that the town embarked on. It's 138 restricted units that are restricted to locals. Their market rate. It looks like they're going to be 100% occupied by the end of July. Another data point about them is during COVID, we tracking very closely experiment with rental. The town embarked on. It's 138 restricted units that are restricted to locals. Their market rate. It looks like they're going to be 100% occupied by the end of July. There is another data point about them is during COVID, tracking very closely experiment with state land. Surplus land is 138 restricted units that are restricted to locals. Their market rate. Looks like they're going to be 100% occupied by the end of July. Another data point about them is during very closely identified as a potential location for housing. That RFQ went out, and it looks like the Pacific Group, who did Freshman 1, as well as Hennis Flats, are submitting an application to that. And it's very preliminary, but it's just exciting that we've all heard about that sort of state surplus initiative, and it landed here in Truckee. Rental assistance. The town embarked on its first rental assistance during COVID. We put $50,000 towards COVID-related rental assistance program in coordination with Sierra Community House, knowing that they were heavily impacted during April and May and June, and wanted to offer another product and get it out the door. We had over 80 applicants in 24 hours. And we're able to write 30 checks to landlords for that period of time. We are looking at another round of rental assistance from state funds in the amount of $96,000 that should come through in the next couple of months, and then we'll start to announce another round of rental assistance. Sorry, I'm going. Big news is we all know funding is a critical piece to housing. We've all talked about how do we get middle income housing with the requirements that come out of state funds, which really focuses on lower income. So there is a 2EOT revenue measure that's going before voters November 3rd. You can find information about it on the town of Truckee, and it polled at about 80%. It's a general tax, increasing TOT from 10% to 12%. So it puts the cost on the visitor on lodging and short-term rental, and the aim is that it will create $700,000 of new revenue for critical housing, open space, and fire protection. So that campaign has kicked off. There's a campaign committee separate from the town that's kicked off, many of which members of this Mountain Housing Council are part of. And you're welcome to join and contact Steve or Stacy on that. And last thing I'm going to present on is we're taking to the town council on July 28th a long-term rental incentive program, hopefully partnering with Landing Locals to offer homeowners a $3,000 incentive to shift from either dormant or short-term renting to long-term renting to a worker in the Truckee area. So look for that, and hopefully we're going to get that going in August. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Yumi, who's going to talk about the planning side of housing. Thanks, everyone.
Shauna, did you want to talk at all about the Atu Pilot Program, or do you want?
I do, but I feel like I've been talking a long time.
Okay.
I could say really quickly, just there is a new housing page on the town's website under government, and we are working on our Atu Pilot Program, rolling out materials, a webinar, partnering with CAT to identify ADU professionals, and then in about a month we'll have an ADU loan product that we'll be rolling out. And just please go there to look at all of the materials that are rolling out. Oh, we are getting about 3 to 5 calls a week right now for people that want to do ADUs and we haven't even started marketing yet. So we think that will be a big program very soon. Thanks, Yumi.
Yeah, and I just wanted to tack on a couple of things that planning is working on right now. In June, the town council authorized 2 contracts for consultants, and the first contract was to Placeworks to work on a feasibility plan for 9 parcels in Truckee with our SB2 funds. And the consultants would look at each of these 9 parcels, and we would identify 1 or 2 sites that could accommodate more density while meeting other town goals. And the town would work on doing some preliminary environmental review with the idea that that could help jumpstart a future housing project on one of these sites or two of these sites. And also the second contract was to MIG to work on a land use plan for the Donner Pass Road corridor, which would augment the work that has already been done to improve the streetscape on that road. And this land use plan would look at ways to incentivize more mixed use development, having both commercial and residential on Donner Pass Road. And just as a shout out, as everyone knows, the town is in the process of a general plan update. And right now we're holding a virtual workshop on land use alternatives through July 31st, which can be found on Truckee2040.com. And it's an opportunity to include community input about future growth, intensity, density of development, where it should go, what it should look like, and then potentially preservation of some items that we think shouldn't change. So I would encourage anyone to go take a look at the at Truckee2040.com and to do the mapping and survey exercise for that. So that's all I have. I think Shauna covered a bunch of programs that the town's working on.
Thank you, Yumi. Thank you, Shauna. I had a chat saying, isn't there any good news coming after the stories? And I think that the good news is in the work that's happening right now. 3 years ago, when we kicked this off, we did not have these kinds of this kind of capacity in our region, and so I hope we can all find and take heart in all the action that is happening now. How about the airport district?
Okay, I'm now unmuted. As Cindy Gustafson said, we're a partner in the NAHAS Dollar Creek Crossing project, and that study is starting after the Board of Supervisors approves that in 10 days or so. And so they're basically going to start over and figure out what is appropriate for that property. And we are hoping at the airport district it's a mix of low income, affordable rentals, and some things for sale. Time will tell. The other project that we approved in 2000 and leased with a limit of $750 a bedroom. He got them rented in about 5 seconds. And in December of 2018, we redid his deal and committed to him $40,000 a unit to again limit the rents to $750 a bedroom plus CPI annual. He resubmitted to the town of Truckee, and they have not processed that because they're doing some studies, and Rick Lee is sitting there. It would be nice if we could get those units on with the rental limit, given the rise in rental rates in this district. The third thing is it's a mouthful, Tahoe Truckee Workforce Housing Agency. I think that is where the airport district is going to focus its efforts. I am hopeful that the agency, with the power of its partners, the school district, the hospital, and the TDPUD, will be able to give some rental guarantees or something like that to get some more housing done. And I think that's where, at least in my budget outlook for 2021, put our money there and not in direct housing. As you may see, we did 2 projects and it's really hard to get them going. So hopefully through the agency that we will make some progress. Rick Stevens for Airport Board.
Thank you, Rick. And then Jerusha, I think you covered Vail's updates. Anything else there?
No, just that we're really pleased to be a funding partner, and thank you for forging ahead with this.
Thank you very much.
Potential approaches or solutions to our employee issues. And then on the good news side, I am now living in our new home that we just purchased 2 weeks ago. We were very lucky to get a pocket listing and work with a wonderful realtor and mortgage team. If it wasn't a pocket listing, there's no way we could have gotten in. So exciting news to end the conversation that a local is able to secure housing in all of this craziness. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Congratulations. It's really wonderful news. Actually, we do have one more update. It looks like SBC, Brittany, has asked if she can add to the updates.
Hi, so this is Steve Frisch at the Sierra Business Council, and I'm going to ask my colleague Brittany Bennessy to weigh in as well. And I also didn't realize we were doing partner updates. So the first item I wanted to cover is the Advocacy Tiger team. So I want to ensure the group that the Advocacy Tiger team has continued to be active, even though we were not able to do our Sacramento meeting this spring. But Brittany, would you like to update real quick on the status of housing in the state budget and in the legislature right now? And then I have a couple items I want to follow you on.
Sure thing. I can give a brief update that as bleak as many priorities for the Sierra region have been, housing has fared pretty well in the state budget deal so far. A significant portion of that is contingent on federal stimulus funds coming through, but it's looking like that deal may happen as soon as the end of this month. That includes funding continued for the low-income housing tax credit program, and as Shauna noted earlier, continued support for state properties to be exchanged for properties owned by a local government for housing purposes. So tracking those on the state level and also seeing a lot of interesting opportunities coming out at the federal level as well that I think Steve is going to touch on.
Great, thanks, Brittany. Yeah, I think the good news that is beginning to emerge at this point, and something that we are intending to focus on in Mountain Housing Council 2.0 on advocacy, is the opportunity to capture some portion of the federal funding that is kind of emerging in both the House Democrats and the Senate Republicans' visions for a stimulus 3.0. So part of that has been proposed is roughly $1 trillion in funding to state governments, which would help backfill part of the California budget deficit, which would be really helpful because housing remains a top priority of the governor and the governor's office and the legislature. And then there are a number of federal proposals for expanding low-income housing tax credit programs and expanding some other funding in selected pots at both HUD and other places. So for the first time, we might actually have a little bit of an opportunity to expand the advocacy profile slightly to some of these federal issues. So as Heidi mentioned, the first time homebuyer down payment assistance program is continuing. I mentioned that we're waiting to see some kind of a shift in the market, but rest assured that program will remain in place. Also wanted to let you all know that Sierra Business Council continues to have assets through our technical assistance program funded by the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development to provide direct assistance to potential affordable housing developers. Most of that assistance has focused at this point on bringing them up to speed on financing options and helping them apply for funding through some of the existing state programs. And then tearing off of Shauna's comment, she mentioned that the town of Truckee had moved forward with a transient occupancy tax increase and slight shift in order to fund housing emergency preparedness and open space assets. One of the things that Sierra Business Council is really interested in focusing on in Mountain Housing 2.0 is the need to actually have more concerted, organized, focused local advocacy around many of these housing issues. I know it's a difficult thing for elected officials and organizations to always weigh in directly, but in some cases we're seeing a real need to have organized constituency showing up and speaking out in favor of housing. So what we're really interested in expanding on is advocacy around support for individual projects, advocacy for support around local policies that will advance affordable and achievable housing outcomes. And then finally, Sierra Business Council will be playing an active role in advancing the Town of Truckee funding measure that is on the ballot this fall. And I would encourage everyone on this call, whether they can do it as members of their organizations or they do it as individuals, to get involved in that campaign because it's a very critical part of leveraging state and federal funds to have a local fund that we can go to for housing. So anyone who is interested in that effort can contact me directly, and I'll put my email address in the chat box. But thanks a lot. We look forward to 2.0. We're ready to dig in. And you may have noticed I have boxes over my shoulders, so I was very sensitive to Julia's story. My story is the same. My wife and I got gentrified out of the house that we rented for 13 years. We were fortunate to find another place in Truckee, due largely to this network of people who are looking after each other. So, Julia, we feel for you, and I think your story is very important to tell. Thank you for telling me.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Very good. I am literally bowled over at how much activity and good progress has been actually forged ahead. So thank you everybody for your updates, and sorry for the switcheroo on the updates. Was there anybody who we missed that wanted to give an update? Annie, Tahoe Donner Association, I know you were joining us and having a hard time.
Stacey, I'd love to give a quick update if there's time as well. This is Allison.
I'm making time. It's been a while since we've all heard from each other, so.
Stacey,
I'll wait. Who, hold on a second, Allison. It might be Annie, and she's just been trying to get on.
Go ahead, Allison, if you want to. I can wait.
Okay, I just have a very quick update. From our collaborative partners, as many of you know, the counties and HUD and many of our partners do a point-in-time homeless count every other year in January. We've committed as a collective to doing it on an annual basis. So the numbers from the count from 2020 in January, so there's 45 individuals who qualify as homeless in the Tahoe Truckee area in January. And again, we know that that number would be significantly higher if the count was done in the summertime. A quick update from the Emergency Respite Center, which is kind of a pilot effort and a partnership between several of our collaborative partners, the Emergency Warming Center, Parks and Rec, and the Town of Truckee. The Emergency Respite Center has been open at the Vets Hall in downtown Truckee. It's currently open on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. They've had about 85 individuals who have come to get a hot meal. Sierra Senior Services is providing food, able to take showers, do some laundry. A lot of the folks who are using the facility are folks who are employed by in the local workforce, but are living out of their cars and don't have access to, again, showers. So it's just an important effort to keep our eye on as a collective, because as a community, we've really challenged or been challenged with homeless services over the years. So it's good to see that there's folks who are able to get services. And then the final thing I will just say is that the collaborative hosts a monthly resource sharing meeting, which is just a meeting where all of our partners come and talk about emerging issues in our community. And we had a conversation around race and equity at our July meeting, and housing was definitely on the forefront of people's minds around how do we ensure that our low income community members and our residents who are people of color also have access to housing. So it was kind of like our number one takeaways to really look at our housing issue through an equity lens. So those are my very quick updates, Stacey. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Annie. Oh my goodness, Annie, I think you're muted still.
There we go. I think, can you hear me now, Stacey?
Yes, yes.
One of those mornings. Thank you all for letting me steal 2 seconds. I continue to be One of the primary partner participants from Tahoe Donner, we have a new general manager who started this week. He is the previous city manager of Healdsburg, so I'm excited for him to come on and see the work that this group has done. I'll just say, I'm going to take a Pollyanna approach to all of the things that we're all facing, is that when I look at the success of 1.0, this group is a group of overachievers, and I'm very excited to see what we can make happen in 2.0 for our community. And certainly as a longtime resident, not quite as long as Stephanie, but with my family moving up here in 90, I've seen this community change and watched the challenges for all of us, local residents and workforce, getting housing. And I want to commit my personal time outside of Tahoe Donner to continue that effort. So I'm very supportive and very excited to participate with this group.
Thank you so much, Annie. I appreciate you being here and for your kind words and optimism. I am going to now, again, share my screen. And we're going to do a blitz through some recap of 1.0. And I apologize if I kind of can't quite get this whole thing going on. So what I would like to show you is some of the work that Scott Keith and his team have done for the website. And I think the important thing here to realize is, and this is like my new favorite phrase that I hate now more than ever. I try not to use it on anything anymore because it's everywhere. But I will say now more than ever, digital content is what we need to be investing in as organizations, as community leaders, because so much of our gathering and so much of what we're sharing is now digital. And a perfect example of that is our, let me see if I can figure this out, placemat. Our placemat in our dashboard. You guys were used to seeing these every quarter. We produced them and we had all the partner highlights, which we just went over. And on the back, as you recall, and we'll get to that in a moment, the dashboard. And so what we've been working on with Scott and his team is trying to translate the placemat and the dashboard into web tools. And what you're going to see here is, I think, a first step getting us there. I think there's some work to make it really easy for you guys to access still. And so it's a work in progress, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at some of what we've been able to pull together. So on the council partners, when we have our highlights, we have everybody listed here. And you can see if you provide us with your highlights of what you've been working on, there is a drop-down menu. It is so exciting to be able to show community members the work that is taking place across all of our partners. These updates, I think I'm going to, try and see if and where they belong in our meetings, so that we can keep things right in front of everybody. But now there's going to be some partners who are going to go to this page and they're going to click it, and I'm not going to do it because I don't want to expose you. But it just means it's not that you didn't do something over the 3-year initiative, it's that you didn't report it in our highlights so that we could put them on the dashboard. So good news, we now have a form that you can go in and personally update. And once it's approved, so that nobody's writing bad stuff under your partner name, once it's approved, it'll automatically update to update what you've been up to on the housing front. This is such a great way to log this and show the community when somebody feels like nothing is happening, to show the community what is happening. So I encourage you to go in it on your own. I'll put it in the chat right now. I don't know if I can chat. I don't know. Somebody else put it in the chat. I'll move on. Other things that we're capturing, results. This is the dashboard. This is what we're going to be talking about in the second half of our meeting. You can see that we reported on what you guys said would be success at the end of 3 years. We still have the impact placemat of April 10th. So that was the last one we did. So these numbers are current. Some of them we blew out of the water. Some of them we didn't hit at all. And so I think this is fodder for how we talk about our outcomes for this next year. Other things you might want to look at is we've captured a timeline of our work together and some of the deliverables associated with that timeline. So a great way to tell people how this organization or this council has come about. And then finally, there's some really great work done unpacking some of the more wonky things. You've seen this before, but we've made sure that it is kind of HTML and not buried in a 77-page report so that when people are searching, they can get to it. We've also taken some time to really unpack more complicated conversations about things like what is area median income and where is the availability gap. So this will continue to evolve. Finally, I guess you might want to see the project pipeline. So we're trying to really track what has been done, what's under construction, what's been approved. And we're going to merge it with what used to be kind of the specific projects themselves. You know, that is coming along, but I hope you're pleased to see that all of this work is really about engaging our community in the conversation and making sure that the hard work that you guys have put into this is not buried in a issue brief somewhere. So with that, I want to just share, this was a slide from our ask. It's what we worked on together that we wanted to continue moving forward with the 1.0 work that we've done. Quarterly facilitation, public outreach, statewide policy, and collaboration, support all of the collaborations happening. But we also wanted to add a regional action plan for the first year of our work. So that's built into this first year. An RFP is going to go out in the coming weeks so that we can start to identify the consulting firm that will manage the regional action plan. Accelerating funding through coordination and leverage. So we'll want to start pulling our funding partners together for that. And then assuming that after this year, the regional action plan validates this concept and provides a strategy, we move forward with a housing hub. I'm going to take a moment and get you thinking about our systems here in the region. These next slides are really about that systems way of thinking how housing is working and isn't working. It has been built on a lot of conversations that inform Mountain Housing Council 2.0, and I think it's a good reminder and grounder of some of our learnings coming out of this. And so here we go. So what we identified in our summer conversations is that we have a misaligned process. We have no lack of developers and developments that want to come into our region. But what we do know is that they need three pretty critical things in a successful development. They need entitlements and planning. They need funds to build the housing, and they need community buy-in. And oftentimes we would see developers come to us with a combination or one of these things, but not all of them completely aligned, which ends up in wasted time, wasted money, and no housing. So to break that down a little bit further, problem one is one-off funding. Oftentimes a developer wants to come into our region. They're looking for soft financing, community funding, ways that they can make it pencil. And they start their roadshow going and pitching to different sources. And we're very lucky to have the sources that we have. And we know that we need to continue to grow the sources of community funding to help offset this. But there's really kind of no rhyme and reason. And sometimes it ends up where funding kind of comes to the table at the wrong part of the process. And so what we think is the solution and what we said in our 2.0 ask is to coordinate our funding more. Problem two is what we've called the entitlement spin cycle. And I say that respectively to our jurisdictions that are overseeing that process. We have heard that there's not a real clear path. It's not streamlined. The fee structure can be complicated with some zingers of fees that people weren't aware of in the beginning. So we see that the regional action plan and some kind of working document like a checklist could be a way for those who are trying to build the kind of housing that we are seeking as a community to have some kind of streamlined process. And then finally, community buy-in. And we have seen this over and over again at Mountain Housing Council where the community isn't ready. They're not engaged, or if they've been engaged, too much time has taken place and now they no longer recall what they agreed to, or maybe what a prior generation agreed to. And it is complicated work, and educating our community so that they're ready for these opportunities and that they feel like they've bought into the right fit for their neighborhood. And again, we think that's a regional action plan plus additional community engagement. And so what we've thought about for a long time now is this systems approach where Mountain Housing Council has our council and is engaging our community to get them ready for that. We participate in a regional action plan, which becomes a working document, a work plan for what we believe could be a housing hub or this next entity. And they are the arm of the regional action plan. With that, they might have a list that helps them do due diligence on the development itself to make sure it fits within achievable local, that they, fit within the regional action plan's guidelines, and it's streamlined process for the developers, which then ultimately allows the developers to kind of be pre-qualified, if you will, and maybe these housing accelerators, the funds that are part of that, come together almost and hear those development pitches all at once and can strategically make funding decisions and leverage each other in the process and attract additional dollars for that. And so what that looks like is, the developers that kind of come to this region have to go through a housing hub that aligns with that regional action plan. They meet certain criteria and hopefully ultimately can secure some of the dollars that we have to offer as a region. So what we're doing today is Mountain Housing Council 2.0. We currently have raised money for what we did in 1.0. So state policy agenda, tiger teams, quarterly meetings, continued gathering of the information that you guys are providing us as it relates to what you're up to so that we're coordinated. Plus, we believe additional community outreach and education to create that readiness with the regional action plan and accelerator fund coordination. And then in the future, hopefully a year from now, we are thinking about actually launching the housing hub, which is the implementation arm. We are aware that there are programs that are starting to come on the table, such as the deed restriction program and the ADU. And that's kind of where we see something like a housing hub being able to pull from as opportunities, not just for developers, but for local homeowners and perhaps in coordination with other housing entities so that it's a hub of all the capacity that we've built as a region to support accelerating housing. Woo! I'm gonna just stop right there and stop sharing my screen for a moment and see your beautiful faces again and just ask, are there any questions that I should be looking at in the chat or from this group? And we're going to have time during breakout to also chew on a lot of this. Sean is about to walk us through breakout prep. So I would just say any really burning questions and then content digging in kind of stuff, let's save it for the breakout session.
Stacy, I have one on the hub. With the what Cindy was talking about and Shauna with the Veil and Deed programs or in the Sierra Business Council, are you or somebody from the Mountain Housing Council involved in those discussions to kind of get an idea of how they may dovetail in the future or even sooner?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I'll be incredibly candid here. We at the Community Foundation have gone pretty bare bones on Mountain Housing Council over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. So without staff in that, it's not, I have not been privy to some of those presentations. However, we are on the heels of hiring a coordinator. And after this particular meeting, which will inform the direction of our outcomes, our goals, I will then open up the position for either the facilitator or the program manager of this, who will then be able to pick up the slack. But as everybody is experienced with COVID-19, our focus at the Community Foundation has been shifted a bit. So I have no doubt, though, to what you're asking about, these programs are programs that we've been talking about for a long time across our partners with Mountain Housing Council. So none of it comes as a surprise that it has gained traction and that they've had the opportunity to kind of push the ball down the field further. So to your point, the Housing Hub, should that be the way this region wants to really start to coordinate all the programmatic and implementation work, that would be a way for them to help amplify these programs that are taking place within the independent organizations. So thank you for that question. Sure. Others? Okay. All right, Shauna, I'm going to get to take a breath for a moment, and I'm going to just run the screen for you for the next couple slides, and then you can walk us through Breakout. So thank you.
Okay. And I wish I could see everybody on that. Is it easier for me to talk with the headset on, or is it better like this? What's better, sound wise? The same?
Yeah, they sound the same to me.
So I'm just gonna, I don't know how many people of the 48 or 39 now. At one point we had 45 people on this call. So I don't know how many of you remember the painful process at the beginning of Mountain Housing Council 1.0, where Stacy and I, in our learning curve, thought we were going to go into Mountain Housing Council 2.0 and present the needs from the 2016 needs assessment, and that was going to be our starting point. And we were going to just, Mountain Housing Council's goals were going to be based directly on the 2016 needs identified. So we came in with the framework that the 2016 needs assessment pointed to, the region being 12,000 units short, including those that were commuting in. 4,000 if we wanted to house those that were in overcrowded situations or overpaying. So we started with the premise thinking that Mountain Housing Council was going to rally around those numbers for 3 years. Much to our surprise, that is not at all what the group wanted to use as the metrics. So we spent, I think, 2 to 3 meetings wrestling over how are we going to measure success for our work in 1.0. And we finally got to the point, as many of you will remember, of saying, at the end of the day, we're 25 partners collectively coming around the table, and we're new, and we don't know. Mountain Housing Council technically is not doing any of the work. It is the collective impact of all of our work. And so how do we put some measures in place to track our work and be able to tell the community what we're doing, but not make it so lofty that we set ourselves up for failure. So if you remember, there's 6 metrics on the current placemat that have to do with number of new units, unlocking existing, preserving existing housing, decreasing the percentage of workers that are commuting, and dollars. I'm missing one more. I think there's 5. And every quarter on the placemat, on the backside and the dashboard, we would call all of you and roll up the collective results onto that dashboard with the intent of inspiring and sharing with the community all of your good work, knowing as I am at a government agency now that it's the last thing on the to-do list is to tell the community what you're doing. And so those we ended up with a strategy. There was a strategy behind it, which is Pat Davidson was very much part of this, but we basically looked at the number of affordable housing units that we as a region have actually created in a 10-year time frame and divided that number by 10 years to get sort of a rate of building in our region, if you can remember that, as some kind of ground to stand on to create the metrics around number of new units. So that's where we got the 300. It ended up, I think, being 80 a year. And again, some years are none and some are more. And so we ended up with the number 300 new units. And I can't see that very well, 300. Anyways, you can see that we use those as our numbers. And in some areas, we were able to go beyond. I remember Cindy Gustafson specifically saying our financial goals were way too low. And we obviously were, you can tell that we went way over that as far as the various grants and funds that were allocated towards housing. I will just say that in the breakout, we're going to go into setting those goals for the next 3 years. And I think we could spend, again, 3 solid meetings talking about this, but what's more important is setting something that's meaningful for us and we think is meaningful for the community and helps us tell the story of our collective work. I think one of the key missing pieces is when we started Mountain Housing Council 1.0, we had the 2016. We started in 2017 on the heels of the 2016 needs assessment. So we did have the needs to reference. That being said, part of the strategy with the Regional Housing Action Plan is to update those needs, which will inform whatever this discussion is today. But as we go into the breakouts, these are the, so there's the results. So
it's just an easier way, I think.
Yep, that's helpful. It was too small for me to read.
It's okay.
Yeah, so again, you've all seen this. We talk about it a lot. I think the new units and the attracting funding, the securing units, which is really the unlocking and the work we do with landing and Tahoe Donner Association with their master leasing and the ski areas with their master leasing was all under that. And then on the retaining affordable units and increasing the percentage of workers living here, the goal, the increasing the workers living here really is a metric that BAE measured for us, and they're planning on, if we were to work with them again and to update, to measure that again. So it's just a reminder as we go in, do we want to, the questions in the breakout are do we want to stick with these same ones? Do we want to change these? Do we want to update them? Do we want to make them more clear? And the process is we're going to break into small groups. Do you have the next slide, Stacey?
Yep. Well, the next slide is the elevator pitches.
Okay, so I'll go into the directions for the work group, but that's just reminding you of how we got to the last set of goals. And then what we're going to do today in the small groups is brainstorm what are the goals we want to use to measure our success over the next 3 years. And then we'll come back together, aggregate all that. And then in September, we'll come back to you. Stacey will come back to you with a refinement of those goals, and then we'll approve them. So this next section is we're going to do some pitches. on some potential ideas of work that we could take on in 2.0, just to get all of our brains thinking about, you know, work out there to be done. What are some of the barriers out there that we want to focus our collective energy on to lower the barriers? What are some opportunities?
Yeah, Shauna, do you want me to jump in for a second?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, tiger teams. I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. And while I'm stopping, does everybody know where the hand clap reaction is? This one? Everybody do that for me real quick. I want to see everybody clapping hands.
Go under more and you should be able to see the hand clappings. Yes.
Yep. When you go under more, or mine says reactions. All right, looks like people have figured out how to do the hand clap. Great. Okay. So this right now is a way for us to kind of quickly source what's on your mind as far as how we prioritize our work. When Shauna and I began 3 years ago, we recognized that we're a pretty small team, and currently we're really small. We can really only manage a couple tiger teams and a couple processes at one time. And so over the course of the last several months, I've had a lot of people come to me with different requests for us to pull together tiger teams. And Mountain Housing Council has done everything by consensus. We've always kind of gotten the direction of the council to allocate our resources and our time and our energy. So every tiger team that we launched, every report that we did, we had consensus from this group. So this is our chance. And I think some of you want to move faster on certain things. Others of you want to kind of stay the course. I will tell you the regional action plan is going to require a team, a tiger team of itself. I'm going to need signups for that regional action plan. After this meeting, I'm going to send a survey around and I'm going to get some signups for that. So that's one tiger team that we'll be managing. Other tiger teams might need to be together for a while. Remember, the idea of a tiger team is it's formulated to tackle one issue. It doesn't continue to roll. So there's a beginning, middle, and end. We're not creating committees. We're not appointing chairs. We're just agreeing that the right people with the right expertise, interest, passion, resources show up and help move the work forward. And so this is your chance to take 2 minutes and give a 2-minute elevator pitch. And I've encouraged a couple of you to bring forward some of the ideas that you brought to me over the last few months. And so if you have something that you feel like we need to work into our priorities to develop a tiger team, we'd like to hear from you. And then we're gonna get feedback from the broader council in our working sessions. So Shauna, I'm gonna hand it back over to you, but I will help manage the 2 minutes. And when somebody sees me clapping, it means that the 2 minutes of the person who is pitching is up. And we appreciate you keeping to the time so we can keep everything rolling, and there will be more time in your breakout sessions to discuss. So I'm going to bring up my timer, and who wants to go first?
Heidi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Well, I've got a couple of things, so I don't know if I get 4 minutes or total. First of all, for the regional action plan, over the past several months, I know partners have come together to talk about the deed restriction program. And we also felt very strongly that we need to update the 2016 BAE housing study report. It's I mean, really out of date at this point, right? It's 4 years old. In order to really move forward with a regional plan, I think we need to get those numbers updated. So I want to pitch that we do that.
Great.
Okay, 19
I'll start
seconds.
the timer again on your second one. I have a feeling what you're bringing up is on the minds of everybody, so I think you can take the liberty.
Yeah, and Heidi, you had texted me because were you going to have Tom? You weren't sure if Tom was on, but he is on.
Yeah. No, I wasn't sure if Tom was asked to speak. Yeah.
So it can be sort of informal. So this is a pitch about the hub.
About the hub, yeah.
So Tom, do you want to do it or have Heidi do it?
Sure, I can do it. I'm not sure how Heidi was going to articulate it, but
okay, so starting now.
Where I've been sitting for some time in the past 20 years, 23 years in the community, we've had this low-hanging fruit of entitled projects and various things that are shovel ready, and they're not coming out of the ground, and they're still not coming out of the ground, even with this crisis. It's getting better, but I think that the challenge has been the missing hub, or where you go for these developers, or whatever their hang up or their hitch is that isn't allowing them to come to fruition. And so to me, that's my elevator pitch is that should be a target, an important thing, as opposed to advocacy or even studies or BAE study. In my opinion, 4 years ago I think the data is still relevant, but getting worse. So the thought that we have these Indeed programs, or what Placer County is working on, the town of Truckee's working on, I think it's fabulous. And the Sierra Business Council is working on maybe administering it. I don't know where that stands. I haven't been part of those meetings, but I think that is part of that need, because I know we have projects that are being built now that have deed restriction, but there's no policing or enforcement or go-to on how these deed restrictions are going to be handled, or if there's a uniform approach in the language that is in these real estate contracts or in these transactions. And so I can speak for Martes Fund, where we're moving forward on a few, and because they don't exist, we're kind of going into uncharted territory. But for the region, it would be fantastic if we're all on the same page, and whatever hub that may or may not come out of this, or might be Placer County, whatever the situation is, that we don't have to later reinvent the wheel and change the language or be opened up the lawsuits, et cetera, because they're not all, you've got peaches, oranges, and apples in the documents, and this new entity is trying to have to police it or understand it, for future events. So I don't know if that.
Thanks, Tom. That's great. That's our housing. That was perfect. So housing hub. Housing hub pitch to update the regional housing needs. Next pitch.
Hi, I'll go. Emily Sutsworth, Placer County. This is kind of tearing off of what Heidi and Tom were talking about, and I know it's come up for suggestions to do some sort of targeted work on the deed restriction program. So we are bringing forward our workforce housing preservation program to our board on July 27th for initial feedback, and then we are continuing to do analysis and develop more of the implementation and detail side of it, and then bring that program back for our board to consider adopting within 90 days. So because we've already developed a lot of the framework and details for this program, and we are moving forward on that, we think we kind of have that already somewhat tight, and are working towards that goal. But the two things that we think could potentially work for Mountain Housing Council to help us and participate on are really the implementation on a regional level, and then funding with our public and private partners. And I know that goes towards our problem number one that was on one of the previous screens about the one-off funding. But yeah, I think the implementation on the regional level, so that we are all working together on some versions of local workforce deed restriction housing, or what we're calling housing preservation. And then also how to really convene our partners and consolidate that public-private funding for our region. I think those are the two important things that could be worked on by Mountain Housing Council. And if you are interested, I'm happy to send out our draft program description for our workforce housing preservation program. I could send that to Stacy for her to share.
Right, thanks. Thanks so much. Anyone else? Stacy, are there any other ones that you know of?
I think I suggested that maybe Steve or Brittany, and I heard it a little bit in Steve's update, talk a little bit about what he thinks about local community engagement and advocacy. I'm just curious, TTCF has some limitations. At the same time, if this council feels strongly about something, we shouldn't be in the way of what that is. And so I just want to be able to ask for that. So there.
I can take that pitch. I think Steve did. I'll just reiterate a little bit of what Steve said in his update. I think he's still experiencing some technical issues this morning, but SBC is definitely in favor of increasing the opportunities for grassroots advocacy and for the Advocacy Tiger team to take a look at the policy priorities that we identified at the start of this year and see where they are now. In this current pandemic state, see where there have been successes and how in this new legislative field, both at the state and local levels, we can increase access to funding and ensuring that our area's priorities are heard from the local to the state to even now the federal levels. There's just opportunities of engagement at all places, and in a goal to increase community engagement in housing in general, policy is a place where people are apt to be right now, and that's a real way to capture them. So looking forward to collaborating on how we strategize those advocacy efforts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, Stacy?
No pre-seeded ones. So
Okay.
This is the time for anyone else.
Yep. So again, what we're trying to do is just get everyone's brains going before we go into the which I have never done, is going into these small group sessions. And just so if you don't feel comfortable talking, you could also just put them into the group chat that we can all see. Just again, we're brainstorming things that Mountain Housing Council could take on in 2.0.
Any policy stuff that the council wants to get into? So we've always been level setters and myth busters. If we thought there was a challenge with housing on some front, we took it on ourselves to do a policy tiger team that would ground ourselves in the facts and be in base, provide our decision makers and our policy makers with those facts. And we've done, some of them had policy recommendations like our fees. Others did not have, as much, but it was more like a white paper. But it's always about grounding ourselves in the facts here.
Shauna, I have something on the potential policy end. I know Truckee's proposal for the increase in transient occupancy tax to help fund the community housing. I'm wondering, has there been any discussions with the municipalities about generating revenues through either vacancy tax or other measures? I think if we go back to the beginning of this meeting, we're noticing that the number one thing that people are looking for in purchasing real estate in Lake Tahoe is usage. And yet the funding mechanism is a nexus associated with the visitor. Yet the visitor isn't the displacement source. So I'm wondering when we're going to get a nexus on the municipalities of the taxation to the people who are basically creating some of the scarcity of the community housing.
So Brett's proposing a vacancy tax like they have up in Vancouver. I know South Lake Tahoe was looking into it.
I think South Lake Tahoe, though, was tying it to transportation, and that was some of the hurdles in implementation, because the nexus of second home purchases to the displacement really wasn't on transportation. But in this case, we know from, Mountain Housing Council 1.0 and what's currently going on right now is our towns are not sustainable under the current conditions, because as each property goes up for sale in the multiple listing service, we're probably looking somewhere around 95% are being purchased as a second home. So we keep losing that percentage of primary residents, and it has nothing to do with the visitor. It actually has to do with the buyer. I think that's something that we really, I'm not saying that TOT shouldn't be a portion of it, but I am kind of surprised because, in my dealings with the Resort Association and the Chamber of Commerce and Truckee and so forth, we feel that those organizations are dramatically underfunded as it pertains to our competitive set when it comes to visitation, whether it be transportation issues, marketing issues, all these things. And yet we keep dipping our hands into this bucket as if it was free money. And yet our conclusions have been people aren't trying to buy property in the North Lake Tahoe Truckee area to make a bunch of money, whether it be short-term rentals or long-term rentals or whatever it is. The number one thing is use. And so sometimes people are using these properties, but we know the majority of the time they're actually not using the properties. This fall will be a time where we probably will see some more usage based on current COVID conditions. But I think it's something that this council needs to discuss more on a policy level and the funding mechanisms based on the realities on the ground.
Great. So I know we're a little bit off on our time. So anybody have any other proposals or ideas? Tom?
Wanted to dovetail into that. Sorry, cut me off if you have to. But to Brett's point, I know in other parts of the country, for example, ski resorts, and I believe they do this in Colorado as well, there's a use tax like $1 per lift ticket, or golf courses, or there's a voluntary like when you go out for a meal, and if you want to donate to something, you can add $1 to a fund or that type of stuff. And there's that kind of use tax out there that they get this extra money as opposed to just on TOT.
Like a resort tax. Yep, they have that in Big Sky, Montana, which funds their housing. It's called it's a resort tax. Yeah,
or the village at Squaw Valley has a civic tax that's 2% that goes to having events and other functions or needs. So I think there's a valid point in looking at other than TOT. But my next question was, we have a current TOT tax that I understand that short-term rentals are paying. I believe it's 2%, and it goes to the chamber or the downtown association for marketing. And that's to drive in more visitors, more et cetera, or create more demand for our service workers that can't get housing. I'm wondering how, with this new TOT proposal, or even with that one, has that been looked at, how those funds are being allocated? And I guess my question is, why wouldn't more of those existing funds be allocated to the critical housing need?
And I want to add, Shauna, to that conversation, if the breakouts are going to talk about kind of the source and the use and the allocation of funding for housing. To add to that, the Martes Fund was created by a transfer tax. I think that it's not as easy as it was back then, but I think there's some legal challenges. But is there an optional 1% that we could capture in the housing sales from so many of the folks who are moving here? If there's a way to not make it a tax itself, but try and capture that story at the moment of a sale and see if they would start to contribute to our community on the front end of their purchase. So I just think it's a whole bundle of conversation around not just taxes and fees, but even a 1% donation to the community for housing locals or something. So, okay, go ahead. Back to you.
Yep. Any other ideas? I'm not seeing anything.
Can I just jump in quickly?
Yes.
So I just wanted to share two things. One of the Tiger team's last time was around supportive housing. And so I was going to throw that out there. And I also recognize that Jasmine Bro with Placer, Nevada County has been convening a group of folks, or is going to start convening a group of folks again around homelessness in particular, and supportive housing as part of that conversation. So I don't know if at some point, like, I don't think it needs to be a tiger team run by the resources of this group, but if people are interested in joining like that tiger team or that committee, we could certainly make that happen. And the second piece is just around the idea of looking at housing with the equity lens. Like, I would love to throw out there, and again, like, I don't know if this needs to be a specific tiger team, but like, how do we look at the housing data with an equity lens, and how do we ensure that housing instability and housing stability is understood by looking at through the lens of our people of color and our low income residents? And so again, like, I don't know if there's specific data sets that we could look at as part of the placemat, or if there needs to be a tiger team to really look at housing inclusion, but I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, so sort of the who are we serving, not just how are we serving, but the who. Yeah. So I do think, though, back to your point about supportive housing, it was I don't even know if we would call it a tiger team per se. And so that would be good to, in this 2.0, define the scope of our work. That's really the goal here. And supportive housing, and there's a homeless housing work group that the county and I sit on. It starts next week. But that doesn't preclude Mountain Housing Council, if this group decides that they want to also be part of that and elevate it, that you could. So, and then as far as when you go into your small groups, some of these ideas could be, like Stacey said, it could be, we want to look at creative financing for housing, including, tax and resort tax and transfer fees, and you could bundle them up. And it could become sort of a policy product or research product area. Okay, so Tamea is saying, so do we have some new ideas? So for clarification, John just wanted to say that, John, do you want to, everyone can read that. That's right. We can all see that.
Yeah, we got to move it.
Yeah, so these are the breakout facilitators, Allison, Emily, and Heidi. And it looks like we're not floaters anymore because the group is so big, correct?
No, we have 38 participants, and they agreed to host 10 to 12 people. So I think, Shauna, you and I can be floaters. Okay.
And you're going to get invites to your groups. We are going to have, I'm just reading Tamea's directions. Oh, I'm on time. Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to go into the breakouts.
Well, so we're going to put you in your breakouts, and then you'll begin your discussion at 10:06. Okay.
Great. And you don't have to do anything except for wait for the invite, because Tamea is behind the scenes slotting you into groups.
Yes, so please hang tight for a few more minutes, and you will begin to see an invite to join a breakout room. Thank you.
Once you get in your breakout room, then take a quick break, and then you guys can resume together.
Went for a late sunset swim. Hannah, your Hannah, and her family.
I'm so confused.
They were swimming. I went to pick Dan Colton up from the rec center, and we were at the parking lot there by the park. I was doing exercise while waiting for Colton, and they were going in their car.
Aren't you proud of me? I got up.
Okay. Okay, you're good.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
How's it going? Is it just 5 of us so far?
Something I said, Heidi.
What's that?
It must have been something I said.
Oh, no, I don't think everybody's back yet. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you.
I can see you. Yes, it's working.
Years.
Less technical issues this time around.
Right. Right. Well, I guess I think we'll just wait. I don't think this is everybody here, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna pop off a sec, but I'll be right back, just so you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hi, Heidi.
Hi. Is it just us?
There are a couple there can't join yet, so I am trying to figure that out.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I figured this wasn't everybody, so I just wanted to confirm.
Yes, a few more minutes, and we are starting at 10:10. I'm about to send out a message, and at 10:38, you have to wrap it up and rejoin the group by 10:40.
Okay.
So bear with me, okay?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hi, Susan.
So how will we know when people are here?
Well, we're going to start right at 10:10. So everybody might not be here yet, but that's what they'd like us to do. So we're just waiting a couple minutes.
Yeah. A little invitation. So anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Is everybody here?
We're here. I'm here.
Hey, everybody. It's a small group, so I'm not, if other people are joining, I think they'll pop in. They wanted us to start at 10 after, so I guess we'll get started. I'm Heidi Alstead with the Martes Fund. I was asked to help volunteer and facilitate this room that we're in. So thanks for joining me. So we're gonna get started. We've got 15 minutes for each topic. We're gonna first start with the goals and metrics that Shauna was discussing, and then go down to the Tiger team ideas and priorities. And then we'll break out again into the bigger group and then discuss so we're on a shared document here. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Great. So just bear with me. I just have to move some things out here. I'm gonna move you guys out of my view. So if somebody, just speak up if you have a question, because I can't type and see everybody at the same time. Everybody good with that? So just hop in with any suggestions. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Are we under one type of bucket, or are we all doing the same criteria or spreadsheet we're looking at each group?
Yeah,
or
we're all doing the same
okay.
thing. Yeah. So in looking at the goals and metrics that Shauna shared from MHC 1.0, we're going to just start with the new units. And I think somebody, let's see. Sorry, I'm looking for another document here within here. So we're just going to take some notes and just get some feedback from you guys around these next goals and metrics here. So let me just, for the first one, new units, Shauna had stated our goal was 300 in 1.0, and we exceeded that by 413. So is this something that everybody wants to keep? Is there still interest in this piece? And if so, and you just throw out ideas and I'll just take some notes.
So, I mean, here's the challenge I'm not trying to be devil's advocate or whatnot, but when we talk about 300 units achieved, I don't see that, because I know of units that are in inventories or that are entitled or whatever the measurement metric is, but they don't come out of the ground.
Okay.
And you have X amount of units or percentage that we lose penetration in or whatever. So those are the ones that I'm concerned about, because they've already been through permitting, entitlements, the public process, whatever the case may be. What's the goal in getting those out of the ground? And are they lumped into this, et cetera? So I can't tell that from these metrics.
Right, okay. Does anybody else have anything to add on to Tom's comment?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I think he's right. It seems to me that we've seen a lot of these plans for things, but that they haven't come to fruition. So I'm wondering if we're measuring completed, what we really have on the ground, or just potential. The other part of potential might be that we still have units that have never been permitted, that I'd love to see amnesty programs go in for and add to the actual count of achieving some sort of extra affordable housing that's considered legitimate or legal or such.
Okay.
I think
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that's a good point, because some of these have sunsetted, or they had entitlements, they were supposed to be built in 2 years, or they might have got an extension on their conditional use permit, whatever the case may be. Given the crisis and they've been through this process, are they still being counted, or are they hung up and have to go back to the planning commission, or whatever the case may be, whether it's in Placer County, Nevada County, town of Truckee? There should be amnesty or a way to let those continue, given we're in a crisis.
Yumi, I know you're about to, I just want everybody to know that we are tracking the projects specifically in where they are in the pipeline. And if you go to the website and if you look at our dashboard, you'll see ones that are pending entitlements versus ones that are completely built. So we ran into that, that criticism before, and we have now started tracking where they are in the process. And we're working on a digital way to show the community very clearly so that we're not claiming victory on things that are stuck.
Well, and it wasn't a criticism. It's just how do we measure it?
Nuances, exactly. Yumi, go ahead. I didn't mean to jump in. I just don't want y'all to spend all your time teasing this out when we already are aware of it.
And I think that's what I was going to jump in and say. I think we do have a little more nuanced. Mountain Housing Council has been putting together spreadsheets regularly, finding out where projects are in the process. I mean, projects are, if they're expired, they do fall off the list. So that could be something that we track as part of this future goal to see why it stopped, why it fell off, and if there's any process to reinvigorate that project.
Yeah, can we add some fuel to it and get it going?
But I do think that continuing to track the metrics for the new units is helpful. I mean, a lot of people, this is the most simplistic way we can track our progress and as a community.
Okay, great. So is that consensus with everybody else as well to continue tracking these units and maybe having implementing some way of tracking the expired projects as well? Is that still?
Yeah, and I would add, you know, for probably not the best example, but think of Hopkins Ranch. That project is 20 years old and has been entitled to come out of the ground for 20 years. And you have a developer that wants to do it, but hasn't been able to do it. So how do we, I mean, those ones that are stuck in the middle there or something should be measured because they're low hanging fruit. I mean, in theory, they could be under construction right now.
Right.
And if we as a group don't have, you know, if they're not on the radar, you know, there's no way to you know, to look into it or. You know.
Yeah. I think, great idea. Do I mean, this is our first one that we're going through. Do you have any sense or idea of what, like, on the priority list of these other goals and metrics where you'd like to see this? So we can also go back and then number them as well when we're complete. But if you have a sense now, I can add that in as well.
This is Rebecca. I'm from South Shore, and I don't feel too much like I want to weigh in because it's not my thing. But I remember from other meetings I've been to, and something we're talking about down here is like diversity of units that are going in, like tiny homes versus apartments. That's something. So I just throw that out there.
That's a good point.
Consider.
Okay. So tracking the diversity as well as the getting some of these projects unstuck, measuring those as well.
Yeah, types of units, you know, adding like ADRs, you know, where we're moving from that so we can measure success there.
Okay. Do we want to add a number here? We reached 413 the last 3 years. Do we want to include a number and a priority number as well? Do you want to say 500? Is that, Tom, you've got a good pulse?
Well, I mean, my challenge here, and I can't speak for the rest of the around the lake and whatnot, but in Truckee, we could see the Artist Lofts coming. We could see Frischman Hollow, Meadowview, etc. So, and the one up there at the Holiday Inn. And so there was a significant amount of units. So it wasn't unreasonable to have that number or that goal. Right now, as I sit, I don't see much on the drawing board coming in, other than the ones that are, you know, already entitled. I don't see new projects.
Mm-hmm.
So putting a goal out there like that, not understanding how we're measuring it, my gut is telling me we'd be lucky to have 200 this coming year.
Okay.
I mean, to I think your previous point that you made earlier in this meeting, I think it's hard to create a goal at this point since we don't have I don't know if a study is exactly what we need to do, but I mean, we don't know. So I don't know how we can say we need 500 units unless we know. I mean, I don't know why. Yeah. Right. So I don't know if a goal is necessary, but I do think a metric to see how we're doing and what kind of, I do agree that diversity of units is a good thing to have. Because if they're all single family homes, that maybe that's not serving all of our population. So I do think this is a high priority. I mean, like I said, it's one of the easiest ways to show progress for us to the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Great. We can, and what I think what might be best is we just come back and then renumber what priority order we would like them in. And okay, does everybody feel complete on the new units conversation? Okay. Sorry, again, I can't see everybody. So retain existing units. Preserving existing. Do we want to keep this, discard this?
Okay, this is Sue, and I have a big real estate quandary with this subject, and that's kind of what I led to a bit ago. There's a bunch of housing now that by default is affordable because it's old. And people are living in it and people can afford to live in it because it's not remodeled. It's, old vacation cottages and stuff that have been turned into long-term. Buyers want to come in and then fix them up and then add them to the rental pool, but they, of course, raise the rents. So then we have a loss of people able to get into these or stay into these. And so, you see a buyer coming in and wanting to help, but they're not really helping because they're pricing these locals out of it. And then we have to come up as a group with other funding ways to help our locals be able to afford these new rents and such. So do we want to add these existing things as they get remodeled into the affordable, and then some of the people will allow them to be deed restricted and some won't. And so it's a hard thing to weigh, and I really have a problem with it when I'm trying to sell things and keep locals in. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, that's a great point. Anyone else?
Well, I wasn't sure if the terminology meant retain existing, like deed restricted, or somehow capped units, meaning like, I know there's some product out there that the buyer has to be deemed local or 80%, but then after 2 years or 5 years, they can sell and that unit inventory has gone back to the market rate or things of that nature. So are we talking about ways to not allow that happen, to keep existing, I'll call it workforce or attainable housing units in the inventory so they don't rise up on, and we lose them because we're making this investment in time of having a base inventory. But the quandary is whoever owns a home, the benefit of home ownership is their value and the equity going up. It's part of their net worth and assets. And to take that away, why would you own if in that case you might as well rent? And so going back and forth. So I'm not sure what when you're talking retain existing units means by definition. If it means like Sue was talking about that we have, inventory that, people like in Kings Beach or wherever, Tahoe Vista have nice cabins or older cabins, people can get into them and there's no heat. And so they pay a fortune in the heating bills or whatever, but they can afford the monthly. Yeah. And then it gets a remodel and now, it might've been a $400,000, $500,000 house, gets a remodel. Now it's 700,000 and it's no longer affordable.
Yeah.
I think there's benefit in continuing to track this. I mean, I see the point that Tom is making that there are many other factors to consider, but maybe we track it and we also keep track of how they fell out of the market or why. I mean, if it's just because there was a term to the affordable housing deed restriction, I think that's important to understand and to see how we can shape policy in the future if we think that was inappropriate or we think that that's not meeting the needs of our community. So I think that there is value in looking at how we're losing affordable housing, even since we're creating it. So we need to know that metric to see how much affordable housing is within our community.
Well, yeah, and we could be losing it to short-term rentals or ski leases or whatever the case may be. I just wasn't sure what a retained unit is.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain we're talking about deed restrictions here.
Okay.
So where is this on the priority list? And do you want to attach a number to it, or are we not ready to do that yet?
I actually think it's pretty high in the sense, and I sorry, I didn't mean to jump in if somebody else wanted to speak. I think it's pretty high in the sense that it's like what we're talking about with the existing units that are coming online now, where we have deed restriction, but we have no way of policing or knowing, or if it stays in that way. It kind of comes back to a hub conversation, or how is that, who's managing the deed restrictions situation. And so right now, I feel a lot of these could fall by the wayside, and as a region or a community, we don't know.
Yeah.
We can't measure.
This is Sue. How do you keep these properties in affordable housing and still deal with free market enterprise and such? Because I mean, we could put a limit that they have to hold them for 2 years or 5 years, but we know that the market is moving really fast, faster than anybody can save, faster than anybody can make up the difference. And so are we fighting a losing battle, and how do we measure that?
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Or
it comes back to policy, what's the program and policies to keep it? If one of these units, like a Vail and Deed, is in perpetuity, as long as it's a local that is purchasing.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. We haven't defined that.
Or what, 55 years, is that? That's the Vail and Deed, right? Yeah. So Tom, you mentioned this as being a high priority. Does everybody else feel like this is also high priority as well?
Looking down the list of the remaining goals or metrics that we're looking at, I mean, I think they're all high priority. So I think we need to find a way to truly discern. So I would say between the two that we discussed, I'd say this is number 2 to the new unit.
To the first one.
That may change as we go through the rest of the remaining items.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do we feel good about this one in terms of moving forward? Okay. So the next one is secure existing or unlocking our existing housing stock for locals. How do you guys feel about this?
I don't know what that means again. So
I believe this would be something like, all of the second homeowners, getting those second home owned houses unlocked for locals for long-term rentals.
I think if there is a true way to accurately track that, I think we should continue to do that. I mean, it's new units that aren't currently for locals. So I think that's part of our goals as a Mountain Housing Council.
Yeah.
But this is a hard one. This is Sue. A lot of these people have had homes in the family for years, and they come up once a month. And so it's 3/4 of the month it's empty. So 3/4 of the year it's empty, but they do use it. And who are we to dictate that they all of a sudden are going to have to be forced to put it on some sort of a rental program? A tax on that, I don't think will pass if it were put in kind of a vote, just because our country's based on capitalism and free enterprise, and property ownership is one of the key triggers to that. So I would say that it is nice that we can approach them. There are going to be people that will take us up on it, but to force people to do it, I think will be met with a lot of resentment, and it won't go anywhere. So,
and I don't think that the Mountain Housing Council's approach, or even probably at least the town of Truckee's approach, has ever been to force conversion. It's mostly been about incentivizing.
Right. A forced conversion. A tax, I think, would be considered an unfair tax, I guess. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, for example, at Squaw Valley, we used to give out season passes to families that would open up their home to allow employees to have, shared room or shared things in there, and that was the incentive. But you would never know that was going on, or you could never measure that. And so I think the carrot is definitely better than the stick. But if the incentive is good enough, people will, rent a bedroom, share, or things like that. But I don't know if agencies don't have that carrot.
Yeah.
Well, this is Rebecca, and maybe I misunderstood her, but I thought Shauna said Town of Truckee was going to do something where they would incentivize, like give $3,000 for people to convert from short-term to a long-term renter. And this is what we're doing. That's what the landing's doing. So I think there is a way to track it, and I think it is great to track. And
sure, that's great.
I am a proponent of the vacancies. You know exactly how many vacant properties there are.
And I think Placer County did the same thing, right? Didn't they send out a postcard last summer to all the homeowners to see if there's a way to incentivize as well? So it sounds like incentivizing, continuing to track this process. Shauna's program with landing, Rebecca, your program, it sounds like that's going to continue.
So would that
want to continue tracking, right?
So would that be $3,000 a year, 6 months like a ski lease, or a month? Because I actually manage a couple of these properties, and I know that these people were long-term rentals or employee rentals, or have even leased to Tahoe Donner for their employees. But they can make almost double their money doing a vacation rental in 1 month than they could on a 1 monthly rate. And so there's no incentive, and they get to come and use it when they want, when it's not occupied, which is why they bought it, is for usage.
Yeah. I don't think the program details we haven't rolled out a program. There is no program. We don't have a program at the moment. So I think that's maybe part of a Tiger Team discussion at some point. Yeah. Or, I think someone else earlier talked about wanting a vacancy tax. So there's obviously two camps within the Mountain Housing Council, and maybe that is something a Tiger Team can discuss about how to secure or unlock these houses for locals, if it is a carrot or a stick or a combination of both.
So having said that, are we setting a goal now or in doing it?
Like Yumi said, these all seem like they're all important. So again, is this, if we were just going to say high, low, medium priority, what would you say? Sorry, Tom, are you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was multitasking.
No worries.
Being directed at me.
Right. Kids and dogs and garbage trucks outside.
It is
important things like, is the car locked? Can I get this? Yeah.
It is a priority because it's existing stock. It's the easiest to build because it's already built. And I wouldn't want to lose it. My point was more that incentivizing in positive, the carrot, and I think a tax would probably not go well. But I think incentivizing and the cards and asking people, I think it should stay. It is the easiest to find.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree with that. And, this new TOT tax bond measure, whatever, going out is upsetting people that are just trying to keep their foot in Tahoe themselves. And the only reason they're doing a vacation rental is to offset the expenses, the property taxes and whatnot, so they can use it.
This seems like a no-brainer in a sense, and what I'm hearing. So would you consider this a high priority?
I think, like Yumi said, we might have to come back because I look down, they all seem to have a pretty high degree of priority.
Okay, and just we have 4 minutes, so we're gonna have to quickly go through these. Okay, so the next one, increased funding for housing, leveraging dollars. Yes.
Yes.
That's an easy one.
Easy.
Yes. Okay.
Next one's the same. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Any more to say about any of these? We want to obviously keep tracking. Implement innovative policy agenda. creating white papers with recommendations, continuing with state policy agenda, local advocacy groups, etc.
I say no. I'm sorry. I feel like we've been doing this for 20 years, and Yumi, you know how I was involved in the past over at the town and in different general plan updates and various. I think we should keep studying things to death, and we have things that are ready to come out of the ground now. And why we keep going back to and paying experts to hear the same thing is a bit of a frustration for me personally.
I mean, I would say the opposite approach, that yes, it is important to continue talking about policy and the reasons why, especially as a local jurisdiction, we need to have support behind why we're making decisions so that we can go back to our community and say, this is why.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't think we don't already have support of the council? I'm sorry, Susan.
No, I think we have support of our council. I just think that it's always a good idea politically. I mean, it's mostly politics. There are people who have opinions on both sides. So we need to be able to advocate for what our opinion is and base it on facts.
Okay.
I think
My argument was we have
but I think we have.
Yeah.
I agree with Tom. We have the facts. We just need to use those and advocate with them. It's not. We don't need to reinvent the mousetrap. We really know where most of our problems lie, and we've got good data. We might need to update some costs or such, but I think it's already there. It is a goal, of course, but it's already there. And I don't think we need to spend a lot of time with these reports again. We've done a really good job. And now we just need to implement.
I mean, I think with the last round of Mountain Housing Council, we had 2 policy papers about fees and short-term rentals that were useful, I think, to us as policymakers. I don't think policymakers are within our local region. There are many. We have 3 jurisdictions that control land use, and they all have different ideas on how to use it. So I think it's how to make policy, I guess, is they have different ideas. So it's important to see what the region thinks as a whole, and so that we can inform our policymakers. So that's just where I stand. I think that thus far the Mountain Housing Council has done a great job of consolidating information. I think, like Stacy said earlier, myth busting some items that may not be true, but are prevalent thought within our community. So
yeah.
I don't know if everything has been exactly what we thought. So it's been interesting.
Well, one of the biggest problems with government is that they do a lot of studying and they don't get things actually on the ground. That's one of your biggest complaints. Where are my tax dollars really going? Why aren't these results being seen? So I would put this as a lower goal. We want to keep pushing for these things, but it's we don't need to do new studies. We've got our studies.
What about state policy agenda? We talked, I just want to, because I think that's important, because that came up as a Tiger team.
Yeah.
So
we want to keep involved state. We want to keep involved with our legislators and implementing the things that will help our goals. So yeah, keeping in touch with that, I do agree with.
Okay.
And I think,
yeah.
I think the state is ahead of us in dictating new policy to counties and local governments and land use planning, et cetera. So they're jumping on it and we're moving slower. It's kind of my takeaway. I think that to Yumi's point, when certain things like fees or whatever, or holdups or timelines to get things done, or myth busting, when those things raise their head, that's when you say, okay, well, let's do our homework and see what are the facts to make a decision based on. But when I was at this Squaw Valley Public Service District, we studied that water system to death and never got anywhere. To the point, I mean, and every politician's afraid to make a decision without something backing it up. You hire the consultants; they don't give you definitive conclusions. They give you A, B, and C, or whatever, or this could be the scenario. So I'm not sure you always get what you're looking for in those. And so I think it's on a case-by-case basis is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I would agree that I'm not saying we do studies for study's sake, but I do think that there are items that are necessary to review and to get consensus on.
Great, thank you guys. Well, it looks like we're being kicked out here in 30 seconds. So we didn't get to our Tiger team pitches. Can anybody in 25 seconds, regional action plan, Tiger team? Prioritize high to medium to low.
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 I think we need action.
Oh, I like the hub. I want the hub.
No, that's not the hub.
Sorry, that's
yeah,
the hub. The hub is the third one down.
The third. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
We're gonna get kicked out. Sorry.
Do you need me to share?
Well, I think it's working now. Why is it making me connect to Google Drive? Yeah, well,
I can help too.
I think it'd be helpful if somebody else shared and somebody typed while I facilitated.
Okay, I'm on it.
Okay, great. Great.
Can you see it?
Yep.
All right, go for it.
Okay, I can't see everybody yet though. Is everybody on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So welcome back everybody to the main room. Thank you first of all to our facilitators for facilitating the small group conversations in the small chat rooms. Really appreciate that. Our goal is to get close the meeting down by 11. So we're going to do this quite quickly. What we'd like is each of the facilitators, we took Stacy went around and visited each of the breakout rooms and we started to take a stab at putting up what we heard. And so why don't we start with one of the facilitators we'll go through this, and if there's anything to add, we'll add this. We're collecting sort of a group brainstorm on the first question, which is goals and metrics for 2.0.
Sorry to interrupt, Shauna. Stacy, do you mind going in present mode? Thank you.
I can't type in present mode.
Yeah, she can type in print. So, okay. So why don't I go ahead, and what I'll do, facilitators, is I'm going to read the 2 slides that we have of the goals that we have moved over from the last 1.0, and then we'll ask for feedback per those areas. So 2.0, we're what we heard is we still want to measure the number of new units of achievable local housing at each of the income levels up to 195, and that we would use the pipeline to do that. We would also want to still measure the number of units being unlocked from the existing housing stock for rentals. So this is really looking at those matching master lease type programs. We want to measure the number of units being unlocked from the existing housing stock for sale or ownership. So the tools for that would be sort of a deed restriction and the down payment tools. Next slide, Stacy. And then, you know, we heard that there's still a desire to sort of measure the capital attraction funding to the region or allocation of capital for housing in the region over time, and then measure sort of policy changes or policy papers or recommendations. So I'm going to open that up to the facilitators. Were there new areas or nuances to these goals? So if you can go to the other slide, Stacy. Yes. So let's start with, I can't see anyone's face. So Allison, do you want to start?
Sure, I'd love to start. So we had a very good conversation about the goals. We did not get to the specific metrics because we spent quite a bit of time talking about, like, are these the right 6 goals? Do we need to add any goals? Do we need to take any goals away? And so what we really talked about was the last goal on the result slide. So we were looking at the presentation around increase the percentage of workers living here. Is that a number of the goals actually kind of fall under that? And that's maybe an overall like outcome of the Mountain Housing Council, because we started talking about like to measure specifically the increase in the number of workers living here, the unlocking units could potentially fall under that as far as as far as issuing deed restriction units could fall under that as well. So we just really wanted to be clear on specific metrics for deed restrictions, which we didn't quite get to, and specifically the number of units unlocked. And we talked quite a bit about unlocking units, and do we need to look at that a little bit differently? It's such a critical piece to our housing work. And like oftentimes homeowners aren't motivated by financial outcomes for that. So how do we still continue to unlock housing? And then we also really, we talked about prioritizing the goals actually, instead of just having them all the same. And we talked about another priority goal for the Mountain Housing Council should really be around attracting funding and capital, and just how expensive it is to build housing. And that should really be a number one driving goal of the overall council. So we had like a very rich conversation around all the goals, but I would say that at a very high level was some of the key takeaways, and that we just need more time to really nail down the metrics. So we're looking at the right metrics to drive the work forward. So group, I hope I did you all justice. If I didn't, you could put it in the chat box, please. And then I have some notes I can add to the Google Doc.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I will, I know we're going really fast, but some communities do create one, they have one goal, like Jackson Hole has one goal, which is about the percentage of workers that live in the community. And then everything falls under that. So that's an interesting idea. Okay, so Heidi, do you want to just based on, so we have sort of 6 areas. And again, this is pretend like this slide is a white piece of paper. We're not locking ourselves in, we're collecting ideas for the brainstorm. So goals.
Yep. Yeah, we went through all of the goals. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to add to any new goals, but the group felt like all of the goals that are currently there are a priority. So they wanted to keep those. Okay. And some of them, I think were a higher priority than others, but we really didn't get to really dive into the metrics so much, or the priority level, I guess, for each one. Definitely, do you want me to say more than that?
No, but if you're ready to, so keeping those same goals from last time, what about on the Tiger teams? And I'll go back to you, Allison. So Stacey, if you go to the next slide on Tiger teams. Next one. Yeah, so any comments? You guys just stayed on the goals topic the whole time?
No, sorry. I was having an issue unmuting. So we very quickly got to the Tiger teams, and we had consensus that the 2 Tiger teams that we felt were critical were the housing study, and then the idea of the hub, just really using the hub to coordinate deed restriction programs, et cetera, et cetera. And again, we had like 2 minutes to talk about that, so I didn't really capture everyone's thinking.
And sorry, Allison, when you say the study, do you mean the Regional Housing Action Plan and the update of this and the study as part of that?
We talked about updating the housing study, yes.
Okay, but not the Regional Housing Action Plan.
And maybe someone said that and I didn't write it down. So if you were in my group, you could just add that to the chat box.
Okay, they're kind of together. They go together because they inform. So I think Stacey has it captured. And and then Heidi, any other?
Unfortunately, we did not.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Okay. This is good job, Stacey. You're getting. And then Emily Setzer.
Hi. Okay. So for the goals and metrics, we thought all of them should stay. For the new units, the main change there is that we thought the goals should be broken out by affordability levels, and also with another category for workers of local employers, not just affordability. For retaining existing units.
Can you expand on that real quick? Just help me understand what that means.
The second part, the affordability or the local?
The worker one, yeah.
Yeah, so we've been talking about local a lot, but now that we have this influx of new locals to our community, but they are oftentimes working remotely, we decided, we thought that there should be more of a clarification on that focus for us, and that it should be a focus on workers from workers of local employers, so that a remote worker could still be a local, but that's not who we're trying to target helping right now.
Yeah.
So we thought that goal should apply to the new units and to the existing units. And then also for that unlocking the existing units. For increasing, sorry, go ahead.
So I think what I'm hearing you say, because I know that pipeline so well, is that what we want to add is not just the number of units, but it kind of goes back to Allison's point of who are we serving? So not just income level, but looking at it through the lens of inclusivity, and then also through the lens of who's in those units, and tracking if the units are going to workers that have who are their employers.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's just adding more tracking to our existing pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any other on? Go ahead.
Yeah, so for increasing funding for housing, we thought the hub needs to have a diversity of funding opportunities.
So that's the next slide, Stacey.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so under attracting funding to the region, you thought that the hub needs its own funding?
It should help a diversity of funding opportunities from navigating planning all the way to construction and incentives.
Okay, so I guess just for the brainstorm, but the hub can help with expanding the role of attracting funds and using funds.
And we
accelerate housing.
$5 million per year.
Oh wow! Okay, you guys have a specific metric. $5 million a year.
We didn't for every category, but we did for that.
Okay, great.
Let's see. The next.
So we can't measure the hub until the hub is actually a thing, right?
Right. I think that's just a brainstorm of the how. It was getting into the how along with the goal. So $5 million per year would be the goal, and then they started to get into a brainstorm on the how. Good. Which would be the how. Okay. I'm sorry,
Okay, so
Emily.
For policy papers and recommendations, the next one. Our recommendation was to implement a local advocacy group that would help with providing advocacy for new housing projects, for funding for housing, and then also state legislative advocacy.
And just, Emily, let me just ask, do you think that's a new area or it goes under policy papers and recommendations? So remember, this is left over from last time where we were counting sort of the number of policy products that were coming out of Mountain Housing Council, and we wanted to measure that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also were trying to measure the change that it created, the policy changes, which was pretty challenging because they take so long.
Yeah.
So the question is that advocacy recommendation?
I think the advocacy is a new one.
Is it a Tiger team or is it a measurement of? I mean, just imagine the dashboard that in 3 years we implemented a local advocacy group that. So maybe it's that worked on 6 different housing projects, right? So would it be probably its own thing versus a policy product?
I think it could be its own thing.
Yeah. So Stacey, just make that its own, a new goal area. Thank you.
Shauna, we are running out of time.
Okay.
Can I recommend a process change here?
Sure.
I think we need to debrief with our facilitators one-on-one and make sure we hear everything from them, and be able to then put this in a kind of a package as part of our notes and bring it back to the Mountain Housing Council to verify. Yes. And that can happen before the next September meeting so that everybody's kind of part of like the sausage making of what each of the breakout sessions did.
Yep, and I can tell already just from even this short report back that the groups did focus on the things that we needed them to focus on, and we're getting it. It's just we're running out of time.
Yeah.
So, so everybody, we will collect all the feedback that you gave to the individual facilitators, put it into this framework, and put it back out to you for comment. And then, so now, we would like to invite. We have 6 minutes left. Is there any public that's just dying to share a comment before we sort of close and do next steps? Okay. Well, fantastic job, everyone. This is, we've officially launched 2.0. I'm going to hand it back over to Stacy for the close and then next steps. And we're well on our way.
I have one comment, just
Yes.
accolades to all of you for keeping this going and bringing it to fruition. I know it's a bit of a pushing the rock up the hill, especially right now. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, Stacy, I'm going to go on mute.
Okay. Shauna, thank you so much for jumping in and breaking up this really important meeting, and having your brain power on it again has just been fantastic. So thank you. Shauna promised me she wasn't going away. She was just changing her role, and she's been true to her promise on that, and we thank you. Wow, I hope this was a nice break from the world news and the national news and sometimes even the local news to see a bunch of really great, committed people in our community. I miss our energy when we're together. Those 7 a.m. getting the breakfast burritos, to the back of the airport, and, talking to people over coffee and panicking over technology issues. Boy, was that minimized in my mind today. This was scary. I've never done any kind of facilitating like this. And so thank you for your patience. I want to acknowledge Tamia behind the scenes, making sure that we all got to where we needed to. And thank you everybody for following directions and getting registered and all that good stuff. So next steps are this: to the facilitators. I'm going to try and propose a 1-hour debrief on Monday. So just take a minute to log as much as you can on your notes. I know it was hard to facilitate on Zoom and take notes at the same time, and we will work to figure this one out by September so that maybe we have 2 facilitators in each room that can do that. So thanks for persevering. And if you can't make the 1-hour debrief, I will make time to work with you individually to get that download. Monday, I'm going to send out a survey to y'all, to everybody, to just gauge where you found the most value out of the meeting, and just logistically how it worked out. 3 hours together at the airport is one thing. 3 hours on a Zoom is an entirely different thing. And for a while, I think we're going to be doing this. And so I really could use some feedback as a facilitator on that. Once we have worked with the facilitators, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks, and then I'll send out notes from this meeting so that you guys have the feedback from all the different breakout sessions and where we're starting to head with the goals and objectives in the Tiger team. I would like to know who wants to be on the renewal of the housing study, which will roll into the regional action plan. So I want to formulate that Tiger team right off the bat. And then in September, we will all agree on the work plan based on today's input. So we're going to go ahead, because you guys signed up for 2.0 and the regional action plan was part of that ask. We're not going to wait to get that started. So those are our next steps. And just email me directly, stacy@ttcf.net, and let me know that you want to be on this first Tiger team. And then your homework is to go to that partner highlight page on the website and make sure that it represents what you feel your organization has done. There's a form at the bottom, and you can enter as many things, and you can go back in time. If you want to say, wait a second, in 2017, we funded this project, I want that to show, then you actually can put the time, the date, and the update. And I think it's like a 50-word max. So between now and the next couple weeks, do me a favor and check your partner highlight and make sure it really represents all the work that you've done. Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the cause?
Is there a next date set, Stacy?
Oh my goodness. You're gonna make me late. Hold on. Did everybody see the dates that we have?
One more minute.
Here we go. Here's how we'll end it. Can you see the screen?
Thank you. Yes.
All right. There you have it. We look forward to seeing everybody October 16th. And until that time, take care of yourselves and keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Bye, Stacy.
Bye, everybody.
Good job,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone. Be well and safe.
Be well and safe.
Thank you. Stacy, can you stay on for a sec?
Sure. Tamia, you want to jump on a hangout?
Yes, I'm going to stop the recording. Yes.
Okay.